We're not taught any of this. I started getting into, incubator programs, just learning, because somebody told me like, hey, have you ever heard? I didn't even know what an incubator was. I didn't know what an accelerator was, and we're always taught not really to ask for money, not to borrow and things like that. And so I think having all of that on you from like generational, what your parents tell you, whatever, it makes it difficult for you to go out there and ask for millions of dollars because you're still trying to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Let alone somebody else believing in you that you're going to be able to take their money and exit.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the More Rounds podcast. I'm Kim Lewis, CEO and co-founder of CurlMix. And on this podcast, we teach you how to fund your business, whether that be cash flow, credit, debt, or an investment. And today we have Tiffini Gatlin here from Latched and Hooked. She's a pioneer in the natural hair space, and I am so excited to get into this episode with her. But before we do, we have to do a cheers.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, so Tiffini, I've seen you. We met at TSP or before then.
So we've never met in person.
Yes.
We actually were in the mastermind around the same time with TSP.
Yep. Okay. But we knew each other online, I think.
Yes.
Because we were in the hair space.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I've been watching your fitness journey online for the last year or two, and I've been so inspired. I've seen you lose over 100 pounds. It's helped inspire me to lose 40, and I'm going to lose another 30. And thank you so much for like sharing your journey with us. And I knew before you had a website where you were selling synthetic hair, right? Mm-hmm. And now you're like doing fashion, like you're multi-hyphenate, you're good at so many different things. And I would love for you to share kind of how you got started and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I got started in the beauty industry in really 2014. Mm-hmm. My first company was called Curl Hair Collection, and I created the first pre-curled and looped crochet hair back in 2014. And
because it wasn't pre-curl before then.
There was no crochet hair on the market at all.
Oh,
like
wow.
What you see now with the crochet locks and the curls and the braids, none of that existed before I created the pre-curled and looped crochet hair.
Did you get like it patented or anything?
So that's a long story.
Oh, was that a sore spot? I didn't mean to.
It's okay. I mean, I've talked about this so many times, so it's not a secret. But so I went into business with someone else. It didn't work out, and I had to end up selling my business. But that's kind of like my claim to fame in the beauty industry is how I got started. I wanted to prevent Black women from hot water burns while protective hairstyling, and nothing existed in the market. And at that time, I was actually styling hair to make money on the side as an entrepreneur, because I used to do hair back when I was 16 years old. So, my whole thing was like, okay, I love this whole crochet movement, but I didn't like the fact that women were actually like dipping their head in boiling hot water.
Girl,
trying to
dangerous.
Get those.
I'm like,
did you ever do the style? Did you ever do the crochet?
I've gotten like extension, like braids before.
Okay.
You know, they dip the hair at the bottom and end to seal it. So like that. Are they doing something different for crochet?
Yeah. So with crochet, you probably saw the girls on Instagram like brushing out the synthetic braiding hair, wrapping it around the rod, and then dipping it in the hot water, and then they would get this like rod like.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
And so although it was cute, it was very dangerous, and none of the hairstylists in the beauty salons were trying to bring that into the salon because of the liability.
Exactly.
And the time. It would take like over, 4 hours to do the style. And so I was like, okay, this would be great if the hair was already curled. Like pre-curled, all you had to do is just take the curl out of the box, just crochet it in your hair, and bam, you do it in, an hour. And so I went into the beauty stores trying to find something. It didn't exist. So I said, I'm going to create it. So that's how I got to the beauty industry, was with the pre-curl and looped hair. Sold that business to, I won't say his name because, he is very known, but sold it to another hair extension company. Mm-hmm. And that company is actually still running today under their portfolio.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
were you happy about the sale or no? Okay. You don't have to get into it.
Not happy about the sale, but it was something that needed to be done to be able to dissolve that business relationship. And at that time, I knew that I wasn't finished in the industry. I knew that I had so much more to offer. I knew that there was so much more that I wanted to do to innovate in the space. And so I created Latched and Hooked. And when I created Latched and Hooked, it was such a weird time because, again, I had just sold my business. And when I started Latched and Hooked, people thought that I was actually copying off of Curl because my first product with Latched and Hooked was the pre-curled and looped crochet hair, because that was the only product that I actually still had in my possession to continue to sell. We had an agreement that I could continue to sell the curls even though I had sold the company. So I spent a lot of time trying to differentiate Latched and Hooked from Curl. And I kept saying, like, I need something to set me apart from Curl, because now the business that I started is now my competition. And so then at that time, my daughter had gotten her hair braided for the first time using synthetic braiding hair. And I think we paid like, a little over $200 to get her hair braided. And literally the next day she was like, Mommy, I need to take this out. My head is burning. It feels like there's like bugs crawling in my scalp. And I'm like, what? We just got this done yesterday. And I'm looking at her scalp and she has like red pus like on her scalp. Oh my God. And so I was like, okay, we got to take this out. And so I'm like scouring the internet trying to find out, like, putting in different symptoms of like what she was experiencing. And I was coming across conversations that Black women were having about being allergic to the synthetic hair. And as you know, as Black women, we're going to give you a solution to what we think, to a problem. So I saw women say, hey, just soak the hair in apple cider vinegar and it'll take the toxins out of it, and then let it dry, and then you can use it to braid your hair and you'll be fine. And I'm like, wait a minute, so let me get this straight. So I'm buying the hair. I have to soak it in apple cider vinegar, wait for it to dry, and then use it to be able to make sure that I'm not breaking out from this hair. Nah, we ain't doing that.
Right. I'm like, this sounds like a lot. I'm like,
we're not doing that. So at that time, I was working at Delta Airlines. And it was like a temporary position I had got with them. But with that position, I was able to have flight benefits. And so at the end of the project, I used my flight benefits to fly to China. And when I flew to China, my goal was to take the hair that I was using, and I wanted to find some manufacturers to help me to determine what they were using, what were the chemicals they were using in the braiding hair that would give women such a bad reaction when they used it. Wow. And prior to me going, I had a sorority sister who was a polymer chemist. Someone connected us, and I told her what I wanted to do, and she walked me through what I needed to do when I went to China. She said, these are things that you need to ask for. And she told me about the material safety data report, and she was like, on that report,
MSDS.
Yes. And she said, on that report, it'll have all the chemicals that they're using to formulate the product. So I went armed knowing what it was that I needed. And I knew that when I left China, I wanted to have a resolution so that Black women could use this synthetic hair without getting, having an allergic reaction. And so that became the differentiator for Latched and Hooked.
Wow. Okay. What was the chemical?
So there's a formaldehyde in there and a bunch of other toxins in there that is chemically imbalanced. When you're using it, your body is just not reacting to that chemical, and so you're breaking out. You're getting the hives in your scalp. You're getting the red pus, like my daughter got. Wow. And so what I was telling them is like, okay, I need something that we can replace this chemical. So I mean, we're using chemicals, obviously, but we need non-toxic chemicals.
And why are they using these chemicals in the hair?
Because it's the way that the outcome of the hair, it reacts more like human hair at the end of the production. Okay. And so the goal is to make sure, like back in the day when we had synthetic hair, it was like plastic. Mm-hmm. You lit it, it was going to burn. Yes. I have a burn on a scar on my leg now from the hair severing and still being on fire, and my leg being on fire. Dang. Okay. So okay. The goal was to make the hair more human-like. And so, this synthetic hair has been in production for over 50 years. Okay. And it had been an industry that had been untapped for 50 years. Like nobody went into that space and said, hey, this hair is not good for us. We need to do better. And so it just so happened that I came along and I'm that one that I had to go and like try to figure out like, what is this and how can we find some chemicals that are safer and non-toxic? What can we swap this with? And so that took a lot of work and a lot of navigating. I had to hire a Chinese employee in China to basically kind of go undercover for me. So basically she was working for me, but really had to go and kind of do some of the work for me because they weren't going to give me the information. Yeah.
So you went all the way to China. They weren't giving the information, and then you had to ask her to go work to help make the hair so you could find out what was in it?
I had to get her to help me to get the information in terms of what they were using, what chemicals were they using, because everything, the material safety data report was in Chinese.
Right. I was going to say, did they have one in English?
Yeah, no, so I couldn't read it. And so I needed, and she already worked at a manufacturer, the woman that I hired, she still works with me. I had to have her go undercover at the manufacturer that she worked at that was actually making the hair to get me a lot of the information that I needed.
Wow.
Because they weren't going to give it to me.
So when you wanted to do this hair, did they say, okay, we'll do this for you. We'll take out these chemicals. Here's your minimum order quantity, your MOQ. Mm-hmm. Like, what was that? How much was it? And how'd you find the money for that?
So ironically, even to this day, I've never had an MOQ.
Really? How?
I've never had an MOQ, and that has been a blessing because I've never had to buy I literally could buy 5 units. And that has really been the thing that has sustained me for the last 7 years.
Why would they allow you to only buy 5 units?
I think it was because my employee, again, she did all my buying for me.
So that's a hack.
So I believe
that's a good hack.
I believe that's why, is because she did all my buying and negotiating for me. Like I did my negotiation with her. So she, when we talked about pricing and all of that, I negotiated that with her. When she came back to me with the pricing, like I would tell her if that's too high, telling her exactly what we needed. And I also design my own products too. That's another thing. So I don't buy a product and then just sell it. So I actually design all of my products. So all of my colorways for like my hair and everything, like I design all of that.
How are you designing synthetic hair? What do you mean? What's up, you guys? For many of you who don't know, I'm Kim, CEO and co-founder of CurlMix, where we help you master your curls in 21 days. CurlMix is what makes this podcast possible, and it helps you get the best wash and go ever. So if you like my hair when you're watching the show, that is what got it here. We are now available in Ulta, you guys. Yes, it is our first retailer ever, and it's doing amazing, and I would love your support if you would go out to Ulta and try CurlMix. All right, you guys, now back to the episode.
So the synthetic hair itself, it just comes as a raw good. It's just hair. Mm-hmm. So the texture of it, whether it's curly, whether it's straight, all of that, like you have to tell them how you want it. Okay. So even back when, with my first company with CurlMix, with those curls, like I actually had to hand curl those and actually those were my samples. Like I had 4 different curl sizes. I actually went to the beauty supply store, bought some rods, wrapped the braiding hair around the rods, curled it myself, put the hair into some little storage containers, and I had 4 different sizes, and I sent those as my samples for them to redesign those and send them back as samples.
Okay, wow.
So even down to texture, when I get it, I'm like trying to get the texture as close to your hair as possible. So when they give it to me and I'm looking at it, I'm like, no, this is too straight. So like I have to continuously, it's like a back and forth thing. Like sometimes it may take me like 3 or 4 months because it's back and forth. They're sending me a sample. I'm like, no, this hair is not coarse enough. It's too straight. no, I don't like this curl pattern. This color is off. Like it's literally like sending them also like color samples. Like it needs to look like this.
And this is why people go directly to China.
Yeah.
Because they can be there for like a month or two and go back and forth with them and not have to have that delay in like a week shipping, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what year is this that you go and you use your Delta flight points to go see the MSDS, find it in Chinese? What year is that?
This is 2016.
So how long before you're selling your hair online?
So I started selling immediately in 2016. I started with the curl.
Okay.
So I started in May of 2016. I go to China later that year. And then that's when I decided that I was going to do the braiding hair, and that was going to be the differentiator. And I didn't start selling that until 2018.
How long before you make your first $1 million?
So in total revenue, we've made $1.7 million.
Okay. Congratulations.
So, thank you. And so my hope is to make $1 million.
You're well on your way. You're well on your way.
My hope is to make $1 million. But, it's so funny because, when I started, I never even thought about the revenue portion. It was really creating a solution for Black women.
Yeah.
That was, obviously, we want to make money, but at the top of my mind, it was about creating a solution for Black women. And also to your point, I think that also was the thing that kind of plagued me a little bit, that number. I don't know how $1 million became like the standard of excellence for Black businesses.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, if you make $1 million, you've made it,
I was more profitable before I made my $1 million, but we ain't gonna talk about that. We ain't gonna talk about that, okay?
And when I sold Curl Salon, I sold Curl Salon in less than 2 years of being in business, and we had made over $2 million.
Okay, so you've already made.
So I had already made
your first $1 million before.
Yeah, I had already made.
And that's what I was asking. I wasn't necessarily asking what Latched and Hooked.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we were in business less than 2 years. But I also, when I started Latched and Hooked, I was always comparing myself to Curl Salon. And see, the difference that I had to realize is that when I started Curl Salon, I came into the market at a time where the product did not exist.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of luck at that time because I didn't really have any competition at that point. So consumers didn't have any choice but to come to me because they couldn't get the product anywhere else. And the Asians hadn't caught on to it yet.
Yeah.
So with Latched and Hooked, the product had already been out there and customers had a choice at this point.
So can you talk about your experience getting your brand into retail? I remember you telling me, I remember hearing about the struggles with that and thinking like, oh, I totally see. I'm like, I get it. I never thought about why we can't get synthetic hair in a Target or why we can't get it in, a wall. Like you have to go to a beauty supply, to get, and I'm like, and I remember it's so inconvenient because it's not a part of my normal everyday experience. Yeah. And so it's like, you got to go all these different places to get your hair braided. Yeah. And I'm like, this don't make no sense. Yeah. But tell me about that experience of trying to get products, your hair into retail.
It's been extremely difficult to get buyers to understand why Black women should be able to pick up their beauty products, including synthetic hair, at the places that they grocery shop. I don't think that at the times when I was doing it, that there were enough Black buyers that understood that were in position to understand that need. I think that there are more now. But even still, I would be a new category. I've seen some hair extensions now pop up in Target and Walmart, but it ain't mine. But it's popping up.
Yeah.
But is
that a goal of yours? Do you want to get your products into retail? Do you think that's even a good idea? What are your thoughts?
After being at QVC.
Oh, you were so I did see that.
Yeah.
How did that go?
I feel like if you can make it at QVC, you can make it anywhere. That's how I feel. That might not be true because I don't know. That's the only, place that I've been. But it was a very strenuous process. Not in terms of getting on QVC because they came to me, but just the whole preparation part. And I did everything myself and we did everything in-house.
It's like 10 different people emailing you.
Yeah.
Asking for a lot of the same stuff. And you're like,
I mean, just even the placing of the UPC code, you're shaking because you're like, wait, did I put it in the right corner? You know, it's a lot. I'll say this. I would love for Black women to finally get the proper representation that they need in terms of being able to buy a product like mine in retail. It's just that I'm not sure if retail is, I don't know if I want to say if they're ready, or again, if they really understand the magnitude of it. Because again, if you go to Target and you go down a Black hair care aisle, you know, which is very small, as you know, the hair care preparation, I'll call it. So like your relaxers, the things that you need to kind of like prep your hair, you know, there's not a lot of that, you know, that's available. And so again, I've gone in Target and I've seen like the 1 pack of hair extensions, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, I see it. It's almost kind of like here. Yeah. You know, but not really understanding the magnitude of it.
The
like
colors, the lengths, the textures of this.
After I go, you know, get my CurlMix, then I got to leave there, and then I got to go halfway across the town in a urban community to find a beauty supply store, if it's even open, to then style my hair. Yeah. Cause now I'm washing and all that, but I need my ponytail, I need my braiding hair, cause I'm going to do a little bit more to it, you know?
So have you never needed to find funding for your business? Like how have you, so you said you're almost doing 2 million, you did 2 million with the last business. Have you been bootstrapped in the entire way? Or have
I've been bootstrapped.
You've never taken a loan or a credit card, debt, anything like that?
So I've done working capital loans. Okay. Of course, when I did QVC, I needed help, and one of my mentors from Google for Startups helped me to do that, along with some friends and family raise that I did. I did my first friends and family raise. That was funny because are you familiar with Goody Nation?
The comb company?
No. So Goody Nation is it's a big incubator for entrepreneurs here in Atlanta. And Joey Womack actually has that infrastructure. And I remember going to him and I was like, oh my God, I need some money. This is due, that's due. Like I'm feeling like I'm drowning. I need help. And he was like, have you done a friends and family raise? And I was like, no. He's like, well, you need to get out there and you need to call up 20 people and try to get $1,000 from them. And I remember being so upset because I'm just like, I'm thinking he's going to be like, I'll help you. You know I'm good for it. I'm going to help you. He's like, nah, you need to reach out to 20 people and get $1,000. And really that was kind of like my start to like, okay, Tiffini, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. You know, I think I've just always been uncomfortable with just asking for money, which is why I've never like raised.
The number one question I get is, Kim, will you coach me? Will you mentor me? Will you advise me on raising funding? And it's really hard to do one-on-one things, but I am going to launch a community to help you guys fund your business. And the way you get access to that community is by clicking the link in the show notes, kimlewisceo.com, and join the mailing list. You'll be first to know when I'm dropping a community so we can help you fund your business. All right, now back to the episode. Yeah, you probably could do a successful crowdfund.
I probably could. And I think you actually gave me that inspiration. Like after I saw you crowdfund, I was like, oh, Kim did it. And I followed you from beginning to end. And you just did such an amazing job. And it inspired me because it showed me that people, you know, consumers cared about what we were doing.
They want to support you.
And I needed to give, you know, my customers a chance to support me. So yeah, I've been bootstrapping the whole time, using my own money.
That's so impressive.
Working capital, loans, PayPal, Shopify, like all of those loans.
When people have a chip on their shoulder about not hitting like that million in a full like calendar year, but they've bootstrapped the entire way. Like the only reason I got to my first million with $100,000 in credit card debt. Do you know what I mean? And then I got to the 10 million after raising $5, $6, $7 million. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like, I wish, you know, people didn't feel that way because that context really does matter because you can spend your way to 8 figures, you know?
But I think also too, being fair about it, you know, we are not taught any of this.
Facts.
You know, we're not taught any of this. You know, I started getting into, you know, incubator programs, just learning, you know, because somebody told me like, hey, you know, have you ever heard? I didn't even know what an incubator was. I didn't know what an accelerator was, you know, and we're always taught not really to ask for money, not to borrow and things like that. And so I think having all of that on you from like generational, you know, what your parents tell you, whatever, it makes it difficult for you to go out there and ask for millions of dollars because you're still trying to believe in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let alone somebody else believing in you that you're going to be able to take their money and exit.
You almost have to like play a little bit of a mind game with yourself and convince yourself, like trick yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
So that you're not stuck in your way of thinking. Yeah. I had a conversation with a friend and I was telling him someone wrote me a check and he was like, well, how much did I write it for? I was like, it was like $2 million. And I'm like, but they tripping. They acting like they gave me 10. And he was like, $2 million is a lot of money. I was like, no, it's not. I was like, the fund of the person is like, you know, this is a $100 million fund and they got 5 funds. And he was just like, he was looking at me crazy. Right. Like, girl, you tripping. Like, and I was thinking to myself, like, I know people who raise $30 million with less of a business structure than I have. You know what I mean? And so, but
see, you said it right there. I think to be able to be as confident as you are, you have to, you have to see it. You have to see that other people have done it. And you just have to be wildly courageous to do it. And when you can do it, and when you haven't sold your business. Yeah, and I have, but it's just like I literally was just moving. I was moving, and that was a devastating time for me when I sold my business. I was pregnant. It was just a lot going on at that time, so I never really even got to process or be happy that I was able to even actually sell it, that somebody actually wanted to buy my business. It took me years. Somebody actually had to come to me and say, do you know the fact that somebody gave you money and bought your business? That is an accomplishment.
Something you thought of in your brain.
Right. They were like, you need to stop looking at it as a, you know, as a sore spot in your journey and you need to put that down. And I had to shift my mind because I was ashamed of it for so long, that the fact that I sold my company in a short amount of time, I was ashamed of it. That was not something I was excited and happy about until somebody actually broke it down to me and was like, nah, you need to put that on your resume. Like when you apply, you need to apply for things. You need to put that down.
Right. You're a second, third time founder. Your business has been acquired because there's value in going through the process. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's value in having the experience of ideating, bringing a product to market, getting sales, getting hype, getting it to 2 million within a couple of years, and then selling it, having somebody who wants to see value in it, and then going through the process of having a successful sale. And I say successful meaning the transaction was completed. It doesn't matter how much you sold for or not. The fact that you were able, you know what that looks like now. So when you're going into your next business, you're not going blindly saying, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, no, you know what this looks like. Yeah. Okay, so we're in our lightning round. We have a few minutes left. Okay. And so lightning round. And I'm going to ask you a few questions. Okay. Some of them you may have already kind of shared answers to, but we'll see. Okay. We shall see. Okay. First question. What's a belief you once had about entrepreneurship that you no longer have? And it can't be that it was easy.
Something that I thought about before. So before I used to think if you were working, quit your job. Quit your job and pursue this business because you can do it. I did it. You can do it. Don't do that.
Girl, I said the same thing.
I'm telling you, do not do that. Stay at your job.
I have learned that. I joke. People were like, Kim, you're so successful. I was like, before I started my business, Tim was making $250,000 a year on his own, and I was working on a business. Now imagine if we never started CurlMix, and I knew how to do what he was doing. Yeah. We'd have been making $500,000 a year in income. Income for the last 7 years. Yeah. That means that we would have touched personally in income somewhere around $3 to $4 million. Now let me just tell you, personally in income in the last 7 years in CurlMix, I have not seen. I maybe have. I don't even know if I even approached $1 million. Right. Like I'm like maybe half. I don't even know. But facts. Okay, that's a great answer. What mistake did you make that you wish you could go back and change?
Getting a partner without doing my due diligence and finding out, more about that person before I went into business with them.
So was the mistake that they were like the wrong partner, or was it a mistake in the paperwork, or was the mistake in like the ownership structure, or was it in like, what do you feel like was the fixable mistake?
The fixable mistake was actually the paperwork,
Okay.
because we went into business 50-50 and never go into business with anybody 50-50.
Really? Okay, I went into business with Tim 50-50. Okay. Oh, she said, you'll see how it goes.
Well,
okay.
I would just say this, the advice that was given to me, and it was a $100,000 mistake in real money, that if you go into business with a partner 50-50 and there is a dispute, there is no third person to break that 50% split that you have. So it becomes deadlock because you own half the business, the other person owns half the business. So there's no third person to say, well, actually, I was there and Kim is right.
Gotcha.
So it just makes it incredibly difficult if there's a dispute that ever happens. No dispute is always all good, but when a dispute happens is when, yeah.
And there's usually a dispute eventually for a lot of people.
At some point, there's usually a dispute, so get your paperwork in order.
That's a good response. And I'm telling you, and just to clarify my situation, so we did start at 50-50, but then we took on investors. So
yeah.
we
your
have
investors are
tiebreakers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we better keep it right, keep it tight.
Exactly.
Because they're gonna break the tie. Okay. What's a book that everyone should read?
I love My Pleasure. And you put me on the spot. I can't remember the name of the author, but she works at Chick-fil-A. She's a marketing exec at Chick-fil-A. And I love it because it's the customer service behind building a business. And, we all heard about the Keith Lee situation here in Atlanta.
Keith Lee, come on the pod. Tell me how you funded your no, anyway. Go ahead.
and I come from the corporate world as well. And so customer service has always been top of mind for me. And I just think that as Black entrepreneurs, we don't get enough training on customer service and how customer service can really make or break your business. Yeah. So I think it's a really great book to read if you need, a little fine tuning on how to build a world-class customer service business.
Oh, I love that. And it's called My Pleasure because Chick-fil-A says my pleasure.
Yeah.
Got you. My pleasure.
Which they got from the Four Seasons. Well, Dan Cathy did.
And you already said this, but I'm just going to ask you so you can reply and tell me what it was. What's the most money you ever lost on a deal?
The most money I ever lost in a deal was probably like $3.5 million.
Wow. Okay. That was a different answer. How you got to tell me the story behind this.
It goes back to CurlMix because for 2 years, almost 2 years, I was locked out of ownership of the business. So I didn't get any access to any of the revenue or any of the profit rather from the business.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
So
gotcha. I'm sorry about that. But lessons. You're gonna be real rich.
Yeah,
don't even worry about that.
It's okay. These are lessons and failures that had to happen. It makes you stronger. It makes you stronger in the long run.
And you're helping our listeners out because they're gonna try not to make these mistakes. When they start their business.
You want to know about failing? I got you. Fail queen.
Most embarrassing moment as an entrepreneur.
Most embarrassing moment? It's not embarrassing anymore, but I think I go back to that because I go back to my last business because I've been in the, I'll say kind of like influencer spotlight for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And so my whole business partnership breakup was a public thing. Oh. And so everybody kind of knew about it. And so it was just an embarrassing time for me at that time. Because
were they in the forums talking about you and stuff too?
Yeah.
Really?
They were all over social media talking about me. It probably still is. But, it wasn't, at that time, it was embarrassing because it was just like, how can I be so naive? How could I not make sure that my paperwork was right? How can I make sure I didn't have a solid operation agreement? It was just like so much that I just felt so embarrassed about, which made me work even harder with Latched and Hooked.
Gotcha.
Thank
you for sharing that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is there a moment you want to relive where it was like so amazing and you're like, oh my God, I want to experience that again?
I think, there's so many moments.
I love that. Okay.
There's so many moments, but I think one was when I won the $100,000 for Google for Startups. And they told me that I won it. I was completely surprised, didn't expect it. But I think at that moment, even though I had been in business for several years, it solidified what I had been doing and working on all these years, because Google for Startups, which is a tech company, believed that I was doing something phenomenal for Black women in beauty, and gave me the top amount, because you could either get $50,000 or $100,000, and they gave me $100,000 and say, go forth and continue to be great.
Oh, that's beautiful. Shout out to Google.
Shout out to
Google for Startups. Is there anything that you want to leave the people with?
I think that, entrepreneurship is not easy, and I think there's always been this kind of debate about, you're a boss if you're an entrepreneur versus working in a corporate job.
Yeah.
And I've done both. And I can tell you that neither one is easier. One is not better than the other. I just think that you have to, in business, you just have to continue to be resilient. You have to continue to be resilient. And I think you have to understand that failure happens, and you really just can't, bypass failure. Yeah. Like you need to fail, and fail fast. And so, yeah, I just think anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, or who is an entrepreneur, and you're growing and you feel defeated, you just got to keep going, because on the other side is, greatness. You just got to keep going.
I love that. Where can the people support you? Or how can they support you?
Yeah, follow me go online to latchedandhooked.com. Follow me on social media at Latched and Hooked, the letter N, Latched, the letter N, and then Hooked. And then I'm also Tiffini Gatlin on all the social media platforms.
Yes, if you follow her on her personal Instagram, you can see how she lost over 100 pounds. I'm like, this is amazing.
I love fitness, I love fashion, I love food. Those are like my three things personally that I love.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning into the More Rounds podcast. I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.